Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to another WIC Innovation Seminar Series episode. We're very, very pleased that you are here. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, or in some cases this morning, and in Prof. Chee-Yoon's case this evening. I know that we have guests from Canada as well, so a very big welcome to you and welcome to all of our guests in South Africa. I'm from the WIC Innovation Center. My name is Adam Pantanovitz, and I hold the Angela and David Fine Chair in Innovation at the university. The WIC Innovation Center, as you probably know by now, is a coordinating center to bolster the mindset around innovation in the university and provide a variety of services to the university ecosystem to help with transfer of new creations within the university out into the world, which we like to term these days valorization, which is to take something of a great idea and make it something even big in the outside world, outside the confines of our great university. With no further ado, I'd like to please welcome Prof. Chee-Yoon, who is an incredibly accomplished academic, but it seems that his skills and influence extend well beyond the academic realm as well, into industry and beyond. Prof. Yu holds first of all, is the Dean of the Ching School of Graduate Studies and the Chair Professor in the Department of Material Science and Engineering at the CityUHK of Hong Kong. He has an extensive biography, which I hope you all had the opportunity to read prior to this event. But his accomplishments are numerous, and we're very privileged to have him share some of his experiences and expertise. I had the great honor of meeting him a couple of weeks back, where I heard his inspiring talk on their many accomplishments in the innovation space. And so we thought, what better moment in WIT's history than to invite the great Prof. Yu to present to us on their strategy and accomplishments and share with us some of their ideas and knowledge. So I really hope that you enjoy this session. I'm going to welcome you, Prof. Yu, and thank you once again so sincerely for your time, even though it is an awkward time of day.
Thank you very much, Adam. And greetings to everyone. I'm in Hong Kong now. It's 10 p.m. local time. But regardless, it's a pleasure to join everyone and to share our experiences. So I'm just going to share the slides. Okay, so I'm going to talk about fostering innovation and enterprise through industry partnerships. We have done a lot of that in Singapore, where I was previously from, and I'm presently in Hong Kong. So by way of introduction, I put up this particular slide here. I'm a member of the Academy of Engineering in Singapore. That means I'm an academician, and you can see that in terms of my college education, I went to Monash University in Australia. After that, I got a job as a lecturer at that time at the University of Hong Kong before moving on to Nanyang Technological University. And the stint at Nanyang Technological University was a very interesting one because I joined it prior to it becoming a university. Before that, it was like a technical institute, we call it. And so I joined it a couple of months. It became a university and had the pleasure of working with quite a number of presidents that have led the university. If you don't already know about NTU Singapore, that's what the short form is, NTU Singapore. We built it from nothing, from a teaching university to a research intensive university. At one time when I was in senior leadership, we rose to, well, I know not everyone believes in rankings, but then, we moved from nowhere to number 11 in the world at one stage. And that was the time I was in university senior leadership. So during that time, I attended an executive course at Tsinghua University, which is the MIT of China, of course, we know that. And I had the good fortune of working with MIT, no less. Some of you may have heard about the Singapore MIT Alliance. In that particular initiative, we selected professors from NTU Singapore and also from NUS. NUS is National University of Singapore, were selected to work very closely with MIT, and there's a reason for that, which I'll share in today's seminar. So every year I would spend a month in MIT for a period of over a period of 10 years. So I got to know MIT very well. They opened all the doors for us, from the president's office to the provost, deans, and all that, and to all the research labs. So it was a time of institutional learning. And the goal there was to understand why MIT is so good, what makes them tick, and bring some lessons back to Singapore. And that indeed helped us to build NTU to be a research-intensive university. Now, after that, I moved on to NUS, the National University of Singapore. I joined NUS as the director of NUS Enterprise, and I'll touch a bit on that in today's talk. I left NUS in October last year and took up my current position at the CityUHK of Hong Kong in November last year. So I'm assuming that everybody knows a little bit about Hong Kong, but in case you don't, here is a bit of introduction. Hong Kong is, of course, has always been the gateway to mainland China. And you see it on the map on the right-hand side. And the scenery here, the harbor view is fantastic, as you can see from the 3 slides at the bottom. If you haven't visited us before, do come. It is very small. We have a population of only 7.5 million. It's multi-religious. So it's widely considered to be the gateway to mainland China. And the other interesting thing to note about Hong Kong is that well, you all know it was a former British colony. Now we sort of operate as a special administrative region. It has distinct laws from China. We are part of China, and yet we have different laws. But you can see that within this wider area, you can see at the top of your slide, Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area. This is a very interesting initiative because if you compare the Greater Bay Initiative with some of the Great Bay initiatives in the world, you have Greater Tokyo, Greater New York, and of course, the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley, right? And the goal is to make the Greater Bay Area so entrepreneurial and so innovative, and that we will be able to rival Greater Tokyo, Greater New York, and San Francisco. So that is a very grand objective, and CityU, where I'm in, is very much part of that action. So allow me to just briefly introduce CityUHK of Hong Kong, and then I'll go straight to what we have done in innovation and enterprise through partnerships with industry. So we have 9 colleges and schools. You can see there: business, engineering, liberal arts and social sciences, science. We have veterinary medicine and life sciences, creative media, data science, energy and environment, and law. So in terms of students, we are a mid-sized university, 12,000 bachelor students, 3,000 PhD students, master students, about 5,000, and then we have 800 faculty actually, and quite a lot of administrative staff. So because some of you may not know City University of Hong Kong, and an easy way to introduce us is to use rankings. Let me emphasize, we don't believe in rankings, or we don't subscribe fully to them, but still they are a nice way to introduce ourselves. So you can see where we are in Times Higher and QS ranking. So we are about between 70 to 82 in the world. In terms of universities under 50 years old, CityU is only 30 years old. You can see that recently, just a couple of months ago, we were ranked number 4th. We ranked 4th in the world by QS. And last year, THE Times Higher ranked us at 6 in the world for young universities. We have 22 academicians. That means this is equivalent to members of the, academy. Your in the US, it will be your Academy of Engineering and all that, and in UK, it will be your Fellow of Royal Society. So for a young university, that's quite good, 22 academicians. And we have 188 faculty who are in the top 2% of the world's highly cited scientists. And so in terms of research, we are quite strong. So let me move on to the main meat of the seminar, which is about innovation and enterprise through partnerships with companies. So why did we look into that? Well, there was a time when I was in senior leadership in Singapore, in NTU. The government asked us to take a close look at what we can do, and in terms of how we can become a global university. The reference points for us were the top Ivy League universities in the US, and of course, Cambridge, Oxford, and some top universities in Europe. After a bit of homework, we decided to focus mainly on MIT and Stanford, predominantly because these two universities stand out from the rest in terms of innovation and enterprise. And if you look at them closely, you find that there are certain characteristics that they possess that make them really good global universities. So, I mean, under the Singapore MIT Alliance, we had a lot of opportunity to talk to people in MIT, and basically this is common knowledge anyway, that, well, if you want to be a great global university, you need great faculty. That's understood. And you have to be able to attract top students. Not only that, you must have a learning environment where the students are inspired and challenged all the time to push the boundaries and not be just contented to sit in classrooms and just listen, but have a sense of curiosity, always want to know more and learn more. And of course, the catchphrase is that we are educating graduates for the future. You cannot train students for the economy or industry of today, because by the time they graduate, things will be different. So the focus then was on having a good learning and knowledge creation in terms of a strong characteristic. And of course, we ascribe to the Humboldtian principle, which is that good research inspires good teaching, and good teaching inspires great research. And lastly, and equally as important, a global university is one that can make an impact. Meaning, If a university is good in research and contented with publishing great papers, that's fine. They'll get recognition. But if they cannot take those research results and turn it into innovation and enterprise, then something is missing. Perhaps they are not making such a big impact in society and in the global world. So that's what we identified. And then we said, okay, let's go for it. Let's try to do all these things well. And that's what helped the Singapore universities to move up. So one of the things that in SMA we learned from MIT was the impact of research and innovation. Now, around the year 1996, so that's quite some time ago, at the turn of the century, right? That's even before the year 2000. People in the US were questioning the National Science Foundation, which was pouring billions of dollars supporting research in universities at that time, and they still do that to this day. So the question was, is it money well spent or is it wasted? Well, surprisingly, the one corporation that tried to address this issue or provide some answers was the Bank of Boston. After today's talk, you can Google it, Bank Boston, impact of research and innovation. And of course, Bank Boston is located in Boston, where MIT and Harvard are. And they did a study, and which shows that that money that was spent on research did lead to good spin-off in terms of technology-based companies. So there were follow-up studies a few years after that, and the latest study was in 2015. You can see on the slide there. So in the follow-up study in 2015, this study was done by the MIT Sloan School of Management. And I'd like to share some of the results from this study with you because it's the latest study available. So you can see that by that time in 2015, MIT graduates have started over 30,000 companies, created 4.6 million jobs, and at that time, the sales figure of these companies was 1.9 trillion US dollars. Now, what is interesting is this. If you now look on the right-hand side, look at the country GDP at that time in 2015. If you consider all the MIT founded companies, these are companies founded by their faculty, by bachelor students, master students, and PhD students, right? If you regard them as a nation, then that sales figure at that time is higher than that of India, which was the 10th largest economy at that time. And it's just slightly behind the economy GDP of Russia. So just think about it, the importance of innovation and enterprise. One university that worked strongly on innovation and enterprise based on their research, being able to create so much value, just one university being able to generate such a positive change in the world, and then made the Singapore government stand up and say, hey, we cannot just have research-intensive universities. We, like MIT and Stanford, there is a separate study on Stanford, but I won't refer to that for the purpose of today's talk. Well, if MIT can create so much value, then in Singapore, we should have research-intensive universities, at least two of them. That's NUS and NTU. But beyond that, we should be able to create value out of the research findings from these two universities, as you can see from this study. And at that time, you can see that first-time entrepreneurs had the median age of only 27. They were only 27 years old, and that age is becoming lower and lower. Of course, to do good innovation and enterprise in the university context, you have to understand what's going on in industry, and MIT and Stanford does a lot of that. But they also have to be in the forefront of research. So you know, these are the waves of innovation in the various areas. So the first basic foundation a university should have, we are talking about deep tech, not any tech. If I can, make the contrast. So if you want to make innovation and enterprise in deep tech, then that particular university have to be research intensive and has to follow the innovation cycles, okay, which is what CityU Hong Kong is doing, and which is what NTU Singapore and what NUS in Singapore is doing. So what we did after the Singapore MIT Alliance was to look for ways to help startups, help to incubate and make them more successful. And what I'm sharing here on this slide is some of the outcomes of our efforts when I was in the National University of Singapore, NUS. So I was one of the directors of NUS Enterprise. And for those who are not familiar with NUS, I've just put the ranking there. Like I said, ranking doesn't tell you everything, but at least it give you an understanding that it is a research intensive university. So you can see that NUS is currently ranked 8th in the world according to QS ranking, and 19th in the world according to Times Higher Education. Now, NUS started this journey on innovation and enterprise where they had good research labs and began to work. We had what we call corporate labs, where all the research labs within the university need to work with industry partners. And through the years, right, they establish programs to help startups to thrive. Now, one thing about the US system is this, and North American system is this. Somehow, the students there are so much more passionate. There can be thousands of them wanting to start up companies. And of course, many fail. And we all know that in terms of statistics, 90% of startups fail within the first 2 years. So taking the lessons from MIT, we look for ways to increase the chances of success of startups. And as you can see from this particular table, what we have done is, these are the names of, as of October 2023, this was from a period where we went into it intensively over a period of 6-7 years, but of course some work was done before that. You can see we managed to have 11 unicorns. These are unicorns. Of course, the definition of a unicorn is a startup that grows so much that it has a valuation of $1 billion US. So within a period about 6-7 years, we had 11 unicorns. It's not a lot, but it shows that it is possible to help them to succeed. And amongst the lessons that we learned was that entrepreneurship is caught. It cannot be taught. If it could be taught, then all the business schools in the world, and there are many great business schools all over the world, they would have churned out thousands of entrepreneurs, right? So NUS And CityU also have a good business school. So we know that it cannot be taught. It has to be caught. I'll explain what that means. And after you excite the students and the researchers and they go on to start up companies, you have to nurture them to give them a maximum chance to succeed. And in Singapore, we double, the number of success stories, in terms of their ability to survive beyond 2 years. And hope that gradually they'll grow into unicorns, which I've showed you they did, some of them did. So having joined the City University of Hong Kong, we are bringing that Singapore experience actually to Hong Kong. Now, in Hong Kong, we are not starting from zero because prior to some of us joining the City University of Hong Kong, they already started the Hong Kong Tech 300. Similar concept, but different way of doing things. And what we have done is we have set up an Academy of Innovation. And the focus is on innovation education, right? Innovation education and talent development. Remember, entrepreneurship can only be caught, and that's where the talent development come in. So what do we do? Well, we have started a number of programs. First of all, we have the Graduate Research Innovation track called GRIT. Now, this is aimed at PhD students, master students, as well as postdocs. Now, one of the takeaways from North America is that professors are not the best people to start up companies. Professors are good in research, and they should continue to do good research and publish good papers. But hey, some of their students, be it bachelor students who spend a short stint in their labs, or master students, or PhD students, may be so excited about deep tech and the possibility of doing a startup that they can take the results from that lab and with the endorsement and support of their PhD supervisor or advisor, go out and go on to form that companies. So GRID does exactly that. It puts, graduate students who are interested in innovation and enterprise through a program that you see at the bottom there. We hold workshops, assignments, consultations. They go through the whole works in a 3-month period, right? So the idea is you put, it's not new in a sense because, they need to have their business idea, then they do their market surveys, business plans and all that. But what is really key to the success of all this is to have successful serial entrepreneurs to be their mentors who can give consultations at different stages of their conceptualization of the business and the startup, and to give them advice where that technology may be applicable. So, I mean, it's so valuable for all the startups and wonderfully in Hong Kong as well as in Singapore, we have quite a large pool of successful serial entrepreneurs. And we have also people who are angel investors and all that. So that's why GRID works. Now, we have also started, you can see, number 2, the PhD by innovation. The idea here is, some professors have many patents from their labs. Now, it's wonderful to have patents, but very frequently, those patents just remain as patents with nobody taking them up. So the idea here is for the professor to take a PhD student to do further research to bring up the technology readiness level, TRL, of that patent, get a PhD, and in the process also write a business plan. So this is something we have launched recently. And we have a Master of Science in Venture Creation. Now, this is quite interesting. This is targeted at people with bachelor's degrees from all kinds of disciplines who are passionate about innovation and enterprise, but don't know how to. Not only that, they're looking for potential partners, people to join in their adventure. So the Master of Science in Venture Creation provides that platform for them to meet together, we take them through something similar to GRID, and then at the end of the 1-year program, they come up with companies too. So the whole idea is this: through GRID, through PhD by innovation and Master of Science in Venture Creation, the idea is to think of it as a fish hatchery. Okay, obviously, the more successful you are in your hatchery, in creating little fishes, the higher the probability that you're going to have more unicorns, right? So that's the idea, equipping them and giving them a good understanding of how to go about it. Now, yet another key component is what we call STEP, Overseas Startup Technology Entrepreneurship Program. Now, this is very unique, which we have learned from experience, that this is unlike your typical internship or company attachments where they just do the normal things that whatever the company want them to do. In this case, the internships are in startup companies, and we choose top startup locations like London, Paris, Silicon Valley, and a number of other places. So we send students to those locations, intentionally talk to startup companies there who are willing to take our students, and our students spend anywhere from 6 months to a year interning in those companies, and they get their ears wet. It's all about experiential learning. It's all about learning what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And then after the attachment, they would know and they would be able to assess whether they have it in them to really do a startup. And our experience is that many who go on STEP, 80% of them do end up starting a company either immediately after they finish their bachelor's degree. So this is targeted at bachelor students, or they may do it after gaining some work experience. Well, I saw this particular picture on LinkedIn actually. I thought it's kind of interesting, so I posted it. So it's not done by me. I saw it on LinkedIn and I'm just sharing it. Now, the reason why STEP is very important and GRID is very important is because very frequently people have a wrong understanding what innovation and enterprise is all about. They think that it's all about building new products and technology. And this slide captures it from LinkedIn. It's about a whole lot of other things: learning about customers, killing ideas at an early stage, testing ideas and collecting evidence, being looking for the right application, talking to mentors who can connect you, to their network and polish your ideas. And many successful entrepreneurs will testify that they need that. So collaboration with industry and seasoned entrepreneurs is so important, right? So this slide nicely sums it up why experiential learning, like the GRID program and STEP, are so important. Okay, let me move on to share a little bit about our Hong Kong Tech 300. It was started in 2020. So, well, it was called Hong Kong Tech 300. Let me go back to the first slide because at that time, that was prior to me joining the CityUHK. They were aiming quite low, actually. They were hoping to start 300 companies within 3 years. But we have exceeded that now. We have 700 companies, and we have done that in a period of 3 years. So I think, because it's well known. Now we are not going to change the 300, although we know that we are aiming for much bigger, much larger hatcheries, that can grow to be full-size salmons or tunas. In Hong Kong Tech 300, what we have is we have strategic partners, co-investors, supporting organizations, professional service partners. And that was also our experience in Singapore. You need a whole ecosystem to enable the startup to polish their ideas, to network, to look for the right investors, and then grow big. So we are so pleased that we have such networks both in Hong Kong and also in Singapore. Well, some facts and figures about Hong Kong Tech 300. So in the first pie chart on the left, you can see the areas that they are into. I said, we are about 700 startup companies right now. And in terms of their association with CityUHK of Hong Kong, you can see that we even get our alumni excited and be involved. So it's not just the undergraduate students, the UG students, or the postgrad students, which are masters and PhD students. And all these have access to our intellectual property IP portfolio. Now, general public there in that middle pie chart means graduates from other sister universities in Hong Kong. So it's not, anyone walking out there in the street. So we are focusing on tech companies. So already we have a bit of track record in Hong Kong Tech 300 in the sense that we have good market penetration and good contacts in mainland China. Of course, it's a market that few can ignore because of the size of the market. It's still a place to be, But we have also ventured beyond China. We have gone to Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia, the total population of Southeast Asia is about 700 million. The largest country there is Indonesia, and Indonesia is growing very fast. And if you go by the reports by McKinsey and KPMG, they predict that the Indonesian national economy will grow to be the 5th largest in about 12 years' time. So it's not a small market, and it's where you need to be. So in CityU, we have already gone ahead and established linkages with the universities there and have good connections with the startups and the people there. So I'm coming down to my last few slides. I thought I want to show you that in CityU, we have many international students, and part of the reason why I visited Johannesburg was to network with, you know, the university Witwatersrand, and I know you pronounce it with differently. Sorry for my pronunciation, but you have good students there. So the idea is to get your students connected with CityU students, so we could have, startups with an eye on the market in China, and with an eye on the market in Africa, and then we can connect with many other countries too. But in this slide, you see we do have many happy overseas students. This is from our spring festival. It is the biggest festival here. And another slide of happy students who are glad to be here in the City University of Hong Kong and mixing with the people here. So with that, I'll stop my sharing and I'll welcome any questions. So I hope I provided for you short, sharp snapshot of some of the attempts at innovation and enterprise by working in industry. So research has to be connected with industry, number one. And number two, when you do innovation and enterprise, get in industry mentors who have done it, been there, then your success rate will be higher. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Prof. And I think it is extraordinary to see what your university is putting in place. And there is a lot from that we can learn and adapt. And we would love to work with you as a partner university, as you mentioned, to cross collaborate on students and on access to, the different markets that
Definitely, Adam.
each of our
We'd love
universities.
to
Yes.
have your students, here to join us in the GREAT programs. So then the students can form groups and form startups together.
Wonderful. Now, you mentioned something that brought up a question from Tanashi, that entrepreneurship is caught, I think you said during your talk. Could you elaborate on what you mean by entrepreneurship is caught? And I know the whole hatchery analogy maybe links somehow to fish being caught. But what did you mean by entrepreneurship is caught?
Yeah, I didn't have time to elaborate, but that's step actually. That's where we place students. We find that, students do entrepreneurship best if they do internships in startup companies. So when they do internship in startup companies, they know the high and lows of the founders, the emotional up and downs they go through, So, and they get to talk with not only the founders, but everyone else in the small company. When we send our students on attachment to startup companies, we look for those that probably not have around 40 to 50 employees, not more than that. Then they can interact with the founders. They can see what it takes to make a startup work. And then when they do their startup, they'll have a better appreciation. That's what we mean by it is caught.
Okay, so it's sort of like the entrepreneurship mind virus that gets
Yes.
that infects the people who spend time in the startup and observes the highs and lows of founders. That's a very interesting idea. Now, I'm wondering as well, I suppose cultivating that through your extensive network, your network is amazing in that you've set up a lot of partnerships already. So what was the main mechanism for setting up all of the industry partnerships and the sponsorships and the funding partnerships and your service provider partnerships? Was that your university's existing network, or did that arise subsequent to this innovation drive? And how did you actually do it?
Great question, Adam. It has to be very intentional. So first of all, intentional in terms of selecting the students. So what we do is we make an open call in the university in both NUS, when I was in NUS and now in CityU, we do that. Also, open call to all students who are interested to join STEP. So we interview them. And grades are important, but not the most important. We are more interested in their passion and why they're interested to do a startup. We take students from all disciplines because experience have taught us that, it's the techie, right? The ones who have the tech may not be the best person to run a startup. That person usually has to work with someone from the media school to help in the marketing and work with somebody, from the business school to look at the running the business bit and all that. So typically the students, it's they self-evolve actually. So the idea is to have passionate students from all disciplines. By disciplines, I mean bachelor's majors from the whole university. You just want passionate students, send them on programs together. And, so we have little groups in Silicon Valley, in Paris, in Scandinavia, in London. And then they just meet up together. And many, during the 6 months there or a year there, they because they work in the startups, they themselves get excited about some of the ideas they have there, and with the in one or two cases, they have continued to work with the startup founders there and taken it back to when they come back to start in the region. That's what happens. So that's student selection. The other thing is there is, if you Google, you'll find that there are some reviews, startup ecosystems in the world. You can pretty easily find out where they are for different fields of technology. So we
Absolutely.
go by those, and we intentionally send people from our university there to network with the startup community there, and then ask them to take some of our students. Now, our experience is that for the first year, they are most reluctant because they always ask, remember, these are bachelor students. Typically, a student who have just finished the second year, we have a 4-year bachelor's program. And they would say, what can this student bring to the table in terms of technology? But very soon after that, after the first year, we get requests from more startups. They say, can you send us more students? Because we carefully select these students, and they find that these students bring a different perspective. If you like a Asian perspective, a regional perspective, which they like very much. So that's
Yeah.
what we do.
Very, very interesting. A very clever deployment of Trojan horse strategy. So, Prof, I guess we've received a really large number of questions. It's actually unbelievable. So we only have about 9 minutes, and I'm mindful that it's nearing midnight on your side. So we're going to try and use our time optimally. Now, we were amazed by the number of unicorns, and I know you said that's not a lot. That is a lot. It's incredible. Just one unicorn is incredible. So in fact, we use PatSnap at our university, and Daneo, who's my colleague, will tell us that we use PatSnap. It's amazing that was one of your unicorns. What kind of This is a question from Daneo. What kind of funding instruments are available to the university startups, and if they receive funding from government, are they expected to pay some royalties or give up any equity in the startups?
Okay, basically, we of course, there are different ways of doing things. Now, let me answer the funding part first, then I'll answer the royalty part. as far as funding is concerned, what we do is, you notice from the 12-week program, they actually do a pitching exercise at the end with real demos, with real proof of concept. And instead of letting the students do their own prototype, we have professional people helping them to do to look at the workable prototype, if you like, you know. And because the pitching is to people who we bring in angel investors and also venture capitalists who are looking for new ideas. We have that in Singapore and also in Hong Kong, and they would be amongst our panelists. Uh, so before they get to see it, actually they present to a university panel, and we have experienced people. And when we see good, what we see as investable companies, we will put in some of our own university money. Not much,
Wow.
not much, but it's a sign, okay, to the tune of maybe in terms of US dollars, 35,000 US dollars. So it's not a lot of money, but it's the credentials it gives
The
to the
signal.
startup
Yes.
company. And because of that, when they go to the next stage and pitch to the venture capitalists, very often the venture capitalists and angel investors will top that up. So that will be good for them to run for a year or two. And then between that year or two, you will expect them to come up with, better networks and all that. And that's how many of them grow from there. Yeah. So that's on
Fantastic.
the investment side. Now, in terms of royalties, uh, our university holds the position that we are not going to make a lot of money from royalties, unlike some of the US universities. And when I was in Singapore, we had looked at various systems, and the two that stand out are MIT and Stanford. Now, MIT, if companies can, even their students, their startups can need to license patent from MIT, and they need to pay royalties. But Stanford, interestingly, takes a different model. They invite people to take a look at their IP portfolio. And of course, they have to sign some agreements. But it's like, come, take my IP, let's sign a contract. But you only need to pay royalty when your startup begins to make real money and churn profits. So that is the direction we are tending to take, because we agree with Stanford that it's better to have people take your IPs and try to turn them into technology companies. Have a go at it at least,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
yeah. So
And in your model, does the university take any equity in the startup or spin out? Or do you rather favor the license model?
well, we take some options, but uh, we don't protect our share. Okay, what I mean by that is, now if the ownership gets diluted, so be it. We rather be
Yes.
known as a university that is very good at helping startups to succeed and grow many unicorns. And hopefully, when they succeed, they'll donate back to the university. We prefer that. Uh, yeah, we're tending towards that rather than collect royalties upfront.
Absolutely. And I mean that makes a lot of sense, and it's very progressive, and it helps the investor to find investment value in the company. It also helps the company to get started without taking too much cash out of the company, which is obviously very helpful for growth. So really appreciate that. I'm going to ask our next question is, how do you facilitate mentorship connections between experienced entrepreneurs and emerging student entrepreneurs at City University? This is from Nick Lottie Hopkins, and he also remarks, and thanks you for the wonderful talk.
Well, fortunately in Hong Kong, we have a big pool of, successful entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs, people doing innovation within their companies who have come out and serial entrepreneurs. So what we do tend to do is go by the technology field area, because very often the mentor, if it is in let's say IT, and the startup is in IT, they can bring in not only their wealth of experience from the IT field, but they can also connect them with practitioners who can help them to polish their ideas further. So that's what we do.
Fantastic. Now, it sounds like that's one of the factors that would drive successful commercialization of inventions in the engineering sector. So that's our next question from Wisdom. What are other key factors that drive successful commercialization?
It's the team, actually. So if you, I'm sure you know that already. Very often when you talk to venture capitalists, they invest in the team, in the people. And sometimes they say, okay, great technology, but they don't see they don't think highly of the team dynamics, then they are unlikely to invest. But they see a great team, highly passionate, with an idea that can still be polished, they invest in them. So ultimately, invest in good people and good teams.
On that note, I'm very mindful of your time and that it's late in the night. I would love to spend more time asking some of the insightful questions that have come in. And my apologies that we won't get to all of those questions, but hopefully we will get to more time with you, Prof. Chee-Yoon. And it's been wonderful to learn from you today. I think that the comments and activity in the chat, echoed that greatly. I want to thank you so much for your time.